Every morning you toss a few crumbs onto the pavement, or you leave the crust of your sandwich on a bench and you walk away without a second thought. You think nothing happened, but the bird watching you from the power line just filed your face into a memory it will keep for years, and it told the others. Somewhere in a Seattle backyard, an 8-year-old girl named Gabi Mann once opened her hand and found a tiny pearl-colored bead, a screw, a broken earring, a single Lego piece, all laid out by crows who had decided she was worth repaying. The question is not whether crows leave gifts. They do. The question is why a wild animal would ever choose to thank you at all. The answer changes everything we think we know about intelligence, memory, and the quiet contract between humans and the creatures we ignore. Most people assume gift-giving is something only we do, a soft and sentimental human invention. But that's not quite right. And the real answer is far stranger than affection. In 2011, a researcher named John Marsloff at the University of Washington ran an experiment that sounds almost absurd until you see the results. He had volunteers wear rubber masks, one of them a caveman face, while they trapped and banded wild crows on campus. Trapping is unpleasant for the bird, but harmless. Then the people in masks walked away. What happened next unfolded over years. Whenever someone wore that same caveman mask and walked across the University of Washington grounds, crows that had never been trapped, crows that weren't even born during the original experiment, would dive and scream and scold the masked figure as if it had personally wronged them. The anger had spread. It moved from bird to bird, from parent to chick, like a story passed down a family line. Marsloff later used PET scans to peer inside crow brains and watched regions light up that, in mammals, handle fear and threat detection. These animals weren't reacting on instinct. They were remembering a specific human face, holding a grudge, and teaching that grudge to their children. So here is the thing that should stop you cold. If a crow can remember the face of someone who harmed it and pass that memory forward across generations, what exactly is happening when it remembers the face of someone who helped? The gifts are the other half of that ledger. Gabi Mann started feeding crows in 2011, around the same time as Marsloff's work, scattering food in her family's yard in Seattle. Within a couple of years, the crows began leaving objects in the empty feeder dish. Not food, trinkets, a polished rock, a button, a bent paperclip, a shard of glass worn smooth. Her family kept them in labeled bags, and the collection became a small museum of avian gratitude. Now, skeptics will tell you the objects are random, that birds drop things all the time. But here's what's fascinating. The gifts appeared only after consistent feeding, only in the dish where food was given, and the behavior has been reported again and again by people who feed crows in Vancouver, in Oregon, in suburban England. The pattern is too specific to be noise, and honestly, what comes next is even stranger. Crows belong to the corvid family, and corvids carry brains that violate everything we assumed about how intelligence needs to be built. A crow's brain is roughly the size of a human thumb, yet it packs neurons more densely than a chimpanzee's. Researchers at the University of Tübingen, led by Andreas Nieder, published work in the journal Science in 2020, showing that crows possess a form of sensory consciousness, an awareness of their own perceptions, something we once reserved for primates alone. These birds make tools. They solve multi-step puzzles. They recognize themselves. The famous New Caledonian crows bend wire into hooks, a feat no chimp performs spontaneously. So when a crow brings you a button, you are not being visited by a simple animal acting on reflex. You are being evaluated by a mind. This is the moment everything began to come apart for the old assumptions. Because the gift-giving isn't really about the gift. Kaylee Swift, who earned her doctorate under Marsloff at the University of Washington, has spent years studying crow behavior, including their eerie funerals, the way they gather silently around their dead. Her research points to crows as creatures running a constant, careful social calculation. They track who is dangerous and who is safe. They weigh cost against reward. And a human who reliably provides food becomes, in the crow's accounting, a relationship worth maintaining. The trinket is an investment. It is the bird saying, in the only currency it has, please keep this going. Here's the part nobody tells you. We love to read these gifts as love, as a heartwarming sign that a wild animal adores us. But the cleaner explanation is colder and somehow more astonishing. Crows are not necessarily grateful in the warm human sense. They are strategic. The shiny object may simply be what they happen to be carrying, dropped in a place they associate with reward, or it may be a deliberate token meant to reinforce a profitable bond. Either way, the bird is not being sweet. It is being smart. And that distinction matters because gratitude that comes from calculation tells you something profound about how relationships, even ours, might actually be wired underneath the feelings we layer on top. The crow is doing openly what we spend our whole lives pretending we don't do. You feel this in your own life more than you'd like to admit. In 2017, behavioral scientists studying reciprocity found that humans are wired for the exact same ledger the crows keep. We remember slights for years. We track favors. The fancy word psychologists use is reciprocal altruism, and the cognitive machinery behind it is staggeringly old. Older than language, older than agriculture. When a coworker covers your shift and you feel that quiet pull to return the favor, that pull is the same ancient circuitry firing in a crow's thumb-sized brain. We dress ours up in words like loyalty and friendship. The crow skips the poetry, but the math underneath is identical, and watching a bird perform it without our comforting illusions is unsettling in the best way. You are not as different from the creature on the power line as you assumed. So consider what you actually are to the crows in your neighborhood. They know your face, not your species, not vaguely, but your specific face, the way you walk, the route you take to work. There are crows alive right now in cities across North America who recognize individual humans they have never been fed by, simply because their parents taught them. You exist in their culture. You are a character in stories told between birds, a figure who is either a threat to mob or an ally to court. What if the line we drew between human and animal, the line that lets us believe gratitude and memory and culture belong to us alone, was never really there? What if it was only that we never bothered to learn the language of the things we fed? Tomorrow morning, you will toss those crumbs onto the pavement again. The same careless motion, the same empty thought. But now you know. Somewhere above you, a mind is watching, remembering, and deciding what you are worth. And one day, in the dish or on the bench, it may leave its answer.